A small-town baker's dream bakery got robbed, and the whole town mocked her failure, so she rebuilt it as a wholesale-only empire and forced them to smell pastries they could never taste. My name is Claire Bennett, and for most of my life I believed hard work and kindness were enough. I really did. I believed if I treated people well, supported my community, and chased my dreams honestly, life would eventually reward me. I learned the hard way that life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes the people who smile at you during the grand opening are the same people who laugh when everything burns down. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. Sometimes it's succeeding without them. I grew up in Maple Creek, a tiny town in Ohio, where everybody knew everybody, the kind of place where gossip spread faster than the flu. My father owned a small hardware store. My mother taught elementary school. We weren't rich, but we had enough. And from the time I was 8 years old, I wanted only one thing: to own a bakery, not because of money, because baking made me happy. My grandmother Eleanor taught me everything. Every Saturday morning I'd stand beside her in her tiny kitchen while she hummed old songs and taught me recipes that had been in our family for generations. Apple turnovers, blueberry scones, cinnamon rolls, lemon tarts. She always said, "Claire, people forget words, but they remember how food made them feel." I never forgot that. After college, I moved to Chicago and worked in several bakeries. I learned everything I could. For 12 years, I woke up before sunrise, worked holidays, burned myself countless times, saved every extra dollar. While friends bought luxury vacations and expensive cars, I quietly built my dream fund. By the time I turned 36, I finally had enough. And I made the biggest decision of my life. I moved back home. People thought I was crazy. Why leave Chicago? Why come back here? Small towns can't support fancy bakeries. But I didn't care, because Maple Creek was home. I bought an old corner building downtown. It had cracked windows, water damage, peeling paint. Most people saw a disaster. I saw possibilities. For 8 months I renovated everything. New floors, new ovens, custom display cases, fresh paint. My entire savings disappeared. But when I finally opened Bennett's Bakery, I cried, because it was beautiful. The smell of butter and vanilla filled the air. Fresh flowers decorated the tables. My grandmother's recipes filled the menu. And for a while, everything was perfect. Customers lined up every morning. Tourists stopped by. Local newspapers featured my story. Business was growing faster than I expected. People constantly told me Maple Creek needed this. I believed them. Then, trouble started. Across the street from my bakery sat Marcy's Diner. Marcy had owned it for 30 years. She wasn't a bad cook, but she hated competition. At first she acted friendly. Then, little comments started. "Fancy pastries won't last around here. People eventually come back to real food." I've seen businesses fail before. I ignored her, but rumors began spreading. People whispered that my prices were too high, that I thought I was better than everyone else because I lived in Chicago, that I wasn't really part of the town anymore. Still, business stayed strong. Until the night everything changed. It happened 2 weeks before Christmas, the busiest season of the year. I arrived at 4 in the morning and immediately knew something was wrong. The front window had been smashed. Glass covered the sidewalk. My cash register lay overturned. Shelves were destroyed. Ingredients covered the floor. And worst of all, my grandmother's handwritten recipe book was gone. I dropped to my knees and cried, not because of the money, because that book was irreplaceable. Police arrived quickly. Insurance people came. Everyone acted sympathetic at first, but as weeks passed and no arrests were made, something strange happened. People stopped feeling sorry for me and started enjoying the story. Some claimed I staged the robbery for insurance money. Others said I deserved it for charging big city prices. One woman actually told me, "Maybe this is God's way of humbling you." The words hurt, but nothing hurt more than social media. People mocked me openly. Guess those cupcakes weren't magical after all. Should have stayed in Chicago. Small towns don't need fancy dreams. Even customers who used to support me disappeared. Business dropped dramatically. Bills piled up. I fought hard. But 6 months later I had no choice. I closed the bakery, and when I locked the doors for the final time, I felt like I had buried a piece of myself. The next day, I sat in my kitchen staring at unpaid bills. My savings were gone. My dream was dead. And for the first time in my life, I considered giving up. Then my phone rang. It was an old friend from Chicago named Vanessa. She owned 3 coffee shops. "Claire, I heard what happened." I sighed. Everyone heard. Then she asked a question that changed my life. "Can you still bake?" I frowned. "What? Can you still bake?" "Of course." "Then why are you acting like your talent got stolen with your cash register?" I sat quietly. She continued. "My shops need pastries. All 3 locations. And honestly, your croissants were always better than anything we bought." I blinked. "You'd order from me?" "Absolutely." That single conversation lit a spark inside me. Maybe my bakery was gone, but my skills weren't. So I converted my garage into a licensed commercial kitchen. Nothing fancy. No storefront. No signs. No tables. Just ovens. I worked 18-hour days. Vanessa became my first wholesale client. Then another coffee shop called. Then another. Soon restaurants wanted desserts. Hotels wanted pastries. Grocery stores wanted muffins. Within 1 year, I had more orders than I could handle. I hired employees, rented warehouse space, bought industrial equipment, and something incredible happened. Without customers sitting inside, without decorating display cases, without managing daily walk-ins, I actually earned more money than before. Much more. By year 3, Bennett Wholesale Baking supplied businesses across 4 states. People who had laughed at me no longer recognized what I had become. Because my company operated quietly, no flashy signs, no publicity, no attention, just results. Then fate delivered something I never expected. One day, a large luxury hotel chain contacted me. They wanted exclusive pastries for all 14 locations. The contract was worth millions. Millions. I accepted immediately, and suddenly, my little garage operation transformed into a true empire. I bought a massive production facility, expanded nationally, created hundreds of jobs, and through all of it, I never forgot Maple Creek. Even though Maple Creek had forgotten me, 5 years after losing my bakery, I returned home for the annual Harvest Festival. People recognized me immediately, but now their smiles felt different, because success changes how people treat you. Funny, isn't it? The same people who once mocked me suddenly wanted conversations, pictures, business advice. Marcy from the diner practically chased me down. "Claire, we should catch up." I smiled politely, but I remembered everything. Still, I wasn't interested in revenge. Life had moved on. Then, the mayor approached me. "Claire, we're trying to revive downtown. We'd love for Bennett's Bakery to reopen." Suddenly, everyone agreed. "Oh yes, we miss your pastries. You should come back." I almost laughed, because 5 years earlier, many of those same people celebrated my closure. But I stayed polite. "I appreciate that. And I meant it. But I had no intention of reopening." Then something hilarious happened. The smell. Every morning during the festival, local cafes served my pastries, because several businesses in town already purchased from my company without realizing it. People kept saying, "These are incredible. Who made these?" And every owner proudly answered, "Bennett Wholesale Baking." The expressions on people's faces were priceless. Some looked embarrassed, some shocked, some uncomfortable, because suddenly they realized something. They had spent years insulting the very person whose pastries they loved. But here's the funniest part. None of those pastries were available for individual purchase. Wholesale only. Businesses only. No walk-ins. No storefront. No exceptions. People begged, "Please reopen. Just weekends. We miss your cinnamon rolls." I always smiled. "I'm sorry. That's not my business model anymore." And every Saturday morning, the scent of fresh pastries drifted through town. People could smell them. Restaurants could serve them. Visitors could enjoy them. But the same residents who once mocked me couldn't simply walk into my shop anymore, because there wasn't one. And honestly, that wasn't revenge. That was consequence. A few months later, something happened that shocked everyone. Police finally solved the robbery. Apparently, a man arrested in another state confessed to several unsolved crimes, including mine. But here's the twist nobody expected. Marcy's son Brandon had helped him, not because he hated me, because he owed gambling debts. And Marcy knew. She hadn't planned the robbery, but she discovered the truth afterward and stayed silent to protect her son. I couldn't believe it. The woman who spread rumors, the woman who smiled while my business died, she knew and said nothing. The entire town exploded. People who once mocked me now turned against Marcy. Her diner lost customers. Employees quit. Business collapsed. Then one afternoon, she showed up at my office. Older, tired, broken. She cried before she even sat down. I ruined everything. I listened quietly. Then she admitted the truth. She had been jealous. Jealous that people loved my bakery. Jealous that I represented dreams she had abandoned. Jealous that I still believed life could improve. And jealousy turned her bitter. I felt angry, but strangely, I also felt sad, because bitterness destroys the person carrying it. Before leaving, she whispered, "I don't expect forgiveness." I answered honestly, "You don't have to," because forgiveness isn't always immediate. Sometimes healing takes time. Several months later, I received another surprise. A package arrived anonymously. Inside was my grandmother's recipe book. The robber had kept it all those years, and after his confession, he returned it. I cried harder than I had in years, because suddenly I had a piece of grandma back. I spent that evening reading every page. Her handwriting, her little notes, her jokes in the margins. And one sentence stopped me cold. Written beside her cinnamon roll recipe, she had scribbled, "Dreams change shape, but they don't disappear." I sat there crying, because she had been right all along. My dream didn't die. It simply evolved. 2 years later, I created the Eleanor Bennett Foundation, a nonprofit organization helping women start food businesses. Every year we provided grants, equipment, and mentorship. Hundreds of dreams began because someone once helped mine survive. Then one day, a young woman named Sophie visited me. She wanted to open a bakery, but she was scared. "What if I fail?" she asked. I smiled. "Oh, you probably will." Her eyes widened. I laughed. "Everyone fails. The question isn't whether you'll fall. The question is what you'll build afterward." She eventually opened her bakery, and today, she's thriving. Because success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about refusing to stay there. Last year, the mayor invited me to receive a community award, ironically in the same town that once laughed when I lost everything. As I stood on stage, I looked around. Many faces had changed. Some people looked ashamed. Others looked proud. And I said something from the heart. I used to think success meant proving people wrong, but I've learned something better. Success means proving yourself right. The room became silent, because that was the truth. I didn't build my company to punish Maple Creek. I built it because I loved baking. Because my grandmother believed in me. Because dreams deserve second chances. After the ceremony, an elderly woman approached me. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "We didn't deserve you." I smiled softly. "Maybe not, but I needed you." She looked confused. I explained. If nobody had broken my heart, I might never have built something bigger. And strangely enough, that was true. Today, Bennett Wholesale Baking supplies hotels, coffee shops, restaurants, and grocery chains across the country. More than 400 employees work for the company. Many are single mothers. Many are people rebuilding their lives. And every employee receives one thing I promised myself long ago: respect. Because success means nothing if you forget kindness. As for Maple Creek, the scent of my pastries still fills the town every morning. Tourists love them. Visitors rave about them, and local residents smile awkwardly whenever someone says, "These are the best pastries I've ever tasted," because they know, they remember. And maybe that's enough. Not revenge, not punishment, just memory. Sometimes consequences speak louder than anger ever could. And every Saturday morning I still bake one batch of Grandma Eleanor's cinnamon rolls myself. Not because I have to, because it reminds me why I started. Not for money, not for fame, not to prove anyone wrong, but because somewhere inside me still lives that 8-year-old girl standing beside her grandmother in a tiny kitchen, believing dreams were possible. And she was right. Now I have a question for you. If the people who laughed at your biggest failure suddenly wanted to celebrate your success years later, would you welcome them back into your life? Or would you keep your distance? I'd love to read your answer in the comments because everyone handles betrayal differently, and your perspective might help someone else who's going through the same thing.